Good morning, everybody. This is Truth Seeker here, and I haven't made a video since last September. I had a double knee replacement, and anybody who knows anything about that will know that it takes a long time to recover from a knee replacement, and I had both done at the same time. So it was pretty intensive, pretty difficult recovery. I'm still in the process of undergoing physical therapy for my knees and working hard at it, and I'm making some good progress. But during that time that I was recovering, I just didn't feel like making any videos. I just didn't have it in me. I was focused on my recovery. And about the time I thought that I would begin to make some videos, again, I come back to this controversial firestorm surrounding Lloyd Evans and some allegations that were made of his soliciting prostitutes and his rebuttals that indicated that some of the allegations were true, at least the core or more important elements of the accusations were indeed substantiated. So I've heard a number of rebut videos. I've seen publicly made announcements from former associates as to why they couldn't support the work with Lloyd or work with Lloyd any longer. And I didn't know what to think about that. I have been a well-known supporter for Lloyd for a long time, very long time. And when he decided to become a professional advocate or get into the advocacy work against the Watchtower in a full-time position, I became one of his larger patrons. Without revealing exactly the amount, I did exceed the highest tier for donation that he had created in Patreon. Plus, there were live chats, monetized live chats where I donated also because it was easy. And I believed in the work that he was doing. But I also believe, rightly or wrongly, that the standards that somebody who's doing a work that others are not capable of doing or just don't have the talent for doing, I believe that a person who is doing that kind of advocacy work on behalf of a community should live to higher standards and be held to certain standards, especially when they're critical of hypocrisy of the agency they're criticizing. In this case, it's Watchtower. One good example is the Bottle King incident where Toni Morris was filmed purchasing a large amount of liquor. And in that leaked video, or it's not exactly a leaked video, but it was a video that was made public, Lloyd was fairly relentless about the hypocrisy, or apparent hypocrisy that was associated with Toni in buying this large quantity of alcohol, also implying that there may be some kind of a drinking problem that might be associated with him. If Toni had been caught, peradventure, with a prostitute, could you imagine the way at which Lloyd would exploit or utilize such a situation? It would far exceed how he managed the Bottle King circumstance, and he used that pretty extensively. Everybody has to admit to that was one of his favorite go-tos in order to embarrass the hypocritical appearance of the governing body. But here now the shoe's on the other foot, and he's finding every excuse in the book other than himself. And in the videos that I've seen where he had actually admitted to using prostitutes every couple months, not on a frequent basis, he claims, that would be 24 times at a minimum, if we can believe what he has to say, 24 times that he solicited a prostitute over the last 4 years. That's 24 more people that I've had sex with in my lifetime. So I think that Lloyd has a twisted way of minimizing the extent to which he's engaged in this risky behavior. And it is risky behavior. There's no question that Lloyd is very smart. He's got a very high intellect. He's got a very strong wit, which draws people into him. He has a charisma and a charm that draw individuals to him, and that is evidenced by the growth of his channel over the last 10 years. He's got now over 100,000 subscribers, many of them over the last several years. It's been escalating. But of all the critique videos that have been made, there are a number of points that I think that needed consideration that haven't really been considered, at least very directly, that individuals who support Lloyd should be considering, and things that I struggled with when it was confirmed that he did indeed engage in this sort of activity. One point I'd like to make is that in all of what I've heard, maybe I missed something, but I never heard Lloyd apologize to his subscribership or his patrons. Lloyd doesn't believe he's done anything wrong or that he has any accountability in his actions. He finds ways of directing and diverting responsibility to sexual repression, watchtowers, influences, and so on. But this isn't the first time that Lloyd admitted to impropriety from a sexual point of view. In his book, he admitted to indulging in, let's say, borderline sexual behavior on the internet, and that it caused a marital rift for some time. And in his book, he implied that this was as a direct result of his sexual repression. Yes, maybe it was. But after 10 years after issuing his book, here he is back engaged in this kind of activity. In fact, even worse, because it's physical, not let's say internet sex, but it's actually soliciting a prostitute. And there's some issues that I have with that activity. I know many individuals minimize prostitution. Many people believe it should be legal. But the fact of the matter is, it isn't legal. It's an illegal activity in most places, including Thailand. It's an illegal activity, and it carries legal consequences if you're arrested and caught indulging and soliciting a prostitute. And in many places, it's a misdemeanor. It's not a serious crime, but it's a risky crime. It's an embarrassment because of the implications that sexual impropriety has always carried with it. It's brought down more politicians and religious individuals than just about anything else. Ted Haggard, who spoke out against homosexuality, engaged in homosexuality. Elliot Spitzer, the New York governor, had to resign because he engaged with prostitutes. And the same with Andrew Cuomo and his most recent situation where he exploited women sexually, and it brought him down. He didn't do anything that was felonious, as far as I understand. Maybe he did, but prostitution isn't a felony unless you engage in prostitution with a minor. Now, this is where there's a real problem, because what do you do if you solicit a prostitute? Do you ask her or him their age? Can you trust that they're giving you, are you 18? Oh yeah, I'm 18. You know, if you're running the risk of being arrested for engaging in sexual activity that you pay for, it might not be a trivial legal matter. It may be a felony because the person you're with might be 17 years old and underage, and that is a serious matter. And that carries with it not only the charge of a felony, but you have to register as a sexual offender, which carries with you the rest of your life, at least in many places. The laws vary from place to place, but many of the laws are becoming more standard. And as somebody who financially supported this work, I didn't agree with the argument that it's nobody's business how his money is spent. This is a fallacious argument. Employers, especially in the corporate world, very much care about the behavior, at least from a legal perspective, the behavior of their employees. When you are hired by a large corporation, part of the contract that you engage with is with the understanding that if you break the law, your employer has the right to terminate your employment, and they identify such things as DUI. Now, there's no moral implication to driving drunk unless you've hurt somebody, but driving over the legal limit itself isn't necessarily a moral issue, but it is a legal issue, and you can have your employment terminated for such a thing. I think many Jehovah's Witnesses are naive because the Watchtower doesn't encourage their followers to follow the normal pursuits that most people follow in terms of employment and so on. They encourage self-employment, being a contractor, washing windows, or some other trade or menial activity, but never really encouraging college, professional pursuits, and so on. So there's very little experience in that area. And so, no, it isn't true that it's nobody's business. As a patron, you are an employer. You're paying Lloyd to do a particular work. And of course, certain activities are expected. The need to support himself, food, clothing, for his family, to food and clothing, and things that are expected. Small vacations with the family, and reasonable vacations with the family, and toys for the children, and so on. These things are expected and go without saying. There's no objection there. But when it's when the possibility of the money I am donating and paying to have activist work done potentially go for an illegal activity, then I have a problem. And so there's that aspect of it that people should be asking themselves, do I really want to support this sort of activity? The other matter that I haven't heard anybody address is why prostitution is illegal in a lot of places, and it's because of the spread of sexually transmitted disease. And that's a very real risk. There's testing that has to be done to make sure that you haven't contracted a sexually transmitted disease. There is, if you catch something, there's the treatment, and so there's all that expenditure that has to be done. All of this is being done without anybody's knowing. It's being hidden from all of our view, and from his family's perspective. There's always running the risk of spreading a disease to somebody close to you. So these are matters that do count and are relevant when somebody wants to be a responsible patron. The individual to whom they are donating, you hope, will behave in a reasonably responsible manner. And it's not wrong to have that expectation. We hold that expectation for our leaders and for our public servants. And in essence, when you are an activist, you're doing a work for the public who support you because this is the best way to, the best means is to pool resources and to find somebody who's talented in this regard to do the most effective activism against, let's say, in this case, an organization that is doing terrible things to people, splitting families and so on. I don't have to go on to talk about the abuses of Watchtower. It's an evident thing. There's one more point that I want to make, and that is with regard to minimizing this whole matter of prostitutes. The Bottle King incident showed how Lloyd would exploit a situation, an embarrassing situation, where one of the governing body members was caught buying large quantities of alcohol, and he used it for quite a few years as a way to embarrass and use the implied hypocrisy of the standard that a governing body member should be held to, and yet here we see him, purchasing large quantities of alcohol, and which implies also the possibility of him being an alcoholic. What if that wasn't Bottle King, but instead a prostitute? What would Lloyd have done with that? And yet, when it's turned on him, oh boy, all the wrong that's been done, the threats that have been thrown out, legal threats, it is hypocritical to say that publicly that you're going to seek criminal charges against certain people, unnamed. It's very menacing, and then say, but if you come back, you'll see how magnanimous I am, how forgiving I am. That is strong arm tactics. That's kind of Godfather type activity, that a way of doing something, and that is very offensive. There is a matter of free speech, and if somebody is telling the truth, then it is the truth. And apparently, in some of this, Lloyd actually admitted to using prostitutes. And lastly, he never, as far as I've seen, and I've seen a couple of these videos, he's never said that this won't happen again. There's that old adage, shame, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So how can we, as supporters, be assured that this isn't going to happen again, or that he just feels it's his right and will continue with this activity? I can't support that anymore, and have somebody that I support knowingly run the risk of a potentially felonious activity that someday he could be arrested for engaging in, and that's something that I just don't want to be a part of. I am from the Bible student movement, and many know my story. A good portion of the Bible students, I can't say what percentage, but it's a high percentage, are my family. And there's right or wrong, there's this guilt by association with this acknowledged use of prostitution. They're going to inevitably say, see, you leave God and your morals go to hell. And look who he's associating with, this person who's using prostitutes. Now, regardless of whether or not anybody believes that a prostitute is immoral, it doesn't detract from the fact that most people do believe it's immoral. And most religious individuals believe it's immoral, and so there is that consideration. And from the atheist community perspective, it really does give those, let's say, Christians or those that believe in God, who believe that morals come from God, and that morals, you become morally depraved, or you lose your sense of morality by becoming an atheist. Um, the atheist community has always argued that secular morality is, if not equal, is superior um, to morality, Christian morality, and godly morality. And I can't help but think of Stephen Fry and his passionate plea towards secular morality being superior. And if you give, right or wrong, the religious sector anything to establish their argument is really something that I can't see how Lloyd can argue for secular morality anymore, because Christians and other religious sects are going to say, see, he can't even recognize that prostitutes are immoral. That is totally irrelevant over the issue of morality, whether it is or isn't truly immoral. The appearance of immorality is enough to do damage to the argument that secular morality is superior. So I find this guilt by association a relevant issue, even though it shouldn't be. It is nonetheless. They're going to, somebody's actions that you support this individual, their actions, they stick on you. And right or wrong, they do. And so I don't want to give that impression that I support anything like that. So it's I really find it's a shame. I wish that Lloyd had gotten help early on. He claims to have gotten counseling, and who knows if he takes it seriously or not. Counseling takes a long time. It's not something where change takes place immediately. It's hard work, and it takes years. And during that time, I don't know if he really should be advocating. Obviously he believes it. He believes he hasn't done anything wrong. He doesn't take any accountability for it. And if he doesn't take accountability for it, why is he getting counseling? What's he getting counseling for? You see, these are the questions that people should be asking themselves. It's sort of hypocritical to say, I've done nothing wrong, but I'm getting counseling for it. So these are questions that people should be asking themselves when they're listening to the arguments that are being presented. So anyway, I'm sorry. I know that my channel is a small channel, and that there are a few people that like some of the things that I've brought out, especially about the early aspect of the society. I find that the corruption of the Watchtower extended from the beginning of the movement, and that it just grew and continued on down to the present time. And so I'm fascinated with the especially the earlier aspects, and what drew my family into association with the Watchtower in its early days. But I think at this point there's the whole matter is so distasteful. It's put such a sour taste in my mouth for the whole thing. I've got to separate myself from this for a while. Anyway, I'm still working on my recovery, and I don't want to have to get involved or think about any more drama. But I do think that it is important for people to think about who they're donating to, and whether or not it's what they want to do. Do they want to support somebody who admitted to doing this, has not sworn that he won't do it again, and is putting themselves in a very risky situation for some potentially very serious charges or health consequences? So this is Truth Seeker wishing you all the best. Maybe I'll get back on air when I feel a little more, when the dust settles, and maybe when I feel a little more inclined. I mean, there are a number of things that I've done recently. For example, I put together a genealogy on Ancestry that's public for the Russell family. In particular, it shows the Mabel Russell Packard, the daughter of Joseph Russell and Emma Ackley, that they're still around today, how they had been ostracized by Russell and his siblings, Margaret Land, and that they were pretty much ostracized from the Bible students movement, and now are completely. In fact, I don't think many of the family know of their connection to Charles Russell. It's probably something that they early on wanted to differentiate themselves from the movement. So anyway, I'm gonna go. And again, this is a video I really didn't want to make, but I think is something that people should consider. Okay, so long, everyone.